Hi, I'm Katie, and this is the Free Art and Design School podcast, web series, whatever. I have yet another amazing guest if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kay, and I'm an animator, and I go to Cal Arts.
Woo! So how did you get into animation? Because it's so niche, and yet I've interviewed a million animators already.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of niche. Um, it's weird. I feel like, I mean, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with cartoons. I feel like that's like so typical, but I didn't really start animating until I was in my undergrad. Um, I I went to SAC in Chicago,
Oh, wow.
and I
Nice.
know, big jump. But yeah, it's really weird at that school. You can kind of just like there's not really like majors. You can just like take classes from whatever program you want. And so I ended up taking a bunch of animation classes then. I mean, I'd always loved just like drawing, so I wanted to try animating. I'd never done it. And then I ended up taking a bunch of classes with Chris Sullivan, and literally like I fell in love with the way he talked about animation, and especially just like the stuff that we watched in those classes. I was like, "Oh my God, this is so weird. I literally have to also do this."
Was it more experimental stuff or was it
Yeah.
normal character stuff?
Yeah, I mean, like we definitely like watched some traditional character stuff, but like I don't know, that stuff has never been that interesting to me. Like not in a shady way, but like, just in like, I feel like it's like obviously I have fun watching like cartoons or whatever traditional animation, but like watching the weird things and like just the more experimental things, it kind of just like blew my mind that like animation could just be that,
Hmm.
like that you could just literally do whatever you wanted and it could be like really interesting and weird and like other people would resonate with it.
Hmm. Yeah. When you came to undergrad, what did you think you were gonna do? Because clearly you were interested in art and drawing and
Yeah.
things.
Um, my portfolio was mostly paintings
Mm.
and like illustrations. Um, I was really interested at the time kind of in pursuing an illustration major. Um, I think just because I didn't really know a lot about what it meant to do art
Hmm.
in college or like outside of just like I'd like to draw in the margins of my notebook, like
Yeah.
so I feel like I was just really interested in like trying a lot of things at that time.
Hmm. And when you left, what made you feel like you wanted to pursue an MFA?
I really felt like, I mean, I feel like for some people at SAC, it was like really great that they were able to do a lot of different things. And for me, it was like as soon as I started animating, it was the only thing I wanted to do. And so like I spent 4 years there like taking animation classes and then, you know, had like a thesis film and like I it just felt like it's kind of like not an animation focused school.
Yeah.
And I felt like I had missed out in
Mm-hmm.
some ways on what I could be learning because I think what I struggled with was that like a lot of my peers felt like they weren't animators. They were like, "Oh, I'm a painter and I'm taking an animation class for fun."
Yeah.
And so when we had crit, sorry, or when we like talked about our work, I kind of just felt like, okay, like we're kind of still always starting from the beginning.
Hmm.
And I really wanted to just keep pursuing what that like what I could do with it. And I really, really enjoyed like working with Chris then and like having someone who would like give me intense crit and like talk to me about my work and like literally like I would be emailing him stuff like all the time about like, oh, I changed this thing or I did this thing. And I think I just really enjoy being in like a group where I can receive feedback. And so yeah, and then when I saw that CalArts offers an MFA in EA, I was like, oh, I have to do that because like I love experimental animation.
Yeah, it's an amazing community that I've somehow wormed my way into.
Yeah.
I took more animation classes at CalArts than design classes, even though I was a design MFA.
Yeah,
And
that's
I'm
crazy.
very happy I did that. Um, have you found, because you, for those who don't know you, you just finished your first year at CalArts.
Yes.
What has surprised you about the program that you like weren't expecting coming into it?
I think I don't know. I think I was like I knew it was small, but I think I was surprised by just like I don't know, just like how everyone really knows each other and like I mean, I wanted it to be that way. And I also wanted it to be in the way where I can like reach out to my teachers and like talk to them about whatever. But like it really is like that, which is like somehow intimidating, but also like really exciting at the same time, just to be in like a cohort of people who are all also really excited about the same thing as you. Um, yeah, and I feel like I was also really surprised that like, especially in my cohort, how different all of our work is. And
Yeah.
like, I think I definitely work more in like I don't know, straightforward animation way. Like I do a lot of digital stuff. And like I think just like being around my cohort and like the people I've met, I've just really been thinking a lot about like, oh, I actually need to like I want to do so many other things.
Yeah, I think that's sort of one of the nice things about EA is like I think people who don't know anything about animation just tend to think about how all the cartoons they see advertised are starting to look the same, or like they go
Mhm.
through different eras where things look the same, or people poach different concepts. But like EA is literally like it's it's like a loose collection of media rather than
Mhm.
like one like kind of animation, which I think is really cool. And like the history classes you can take and you see all these different things and ways of making are amazing. What would you say kind of drives you to make the work that you make, or what are you inspired by? Because I saw your film at the end of the year like
Mhm.
show, and it was really delicate and beautiful and very like thoughtful, almost like
Mhm.
religious. I don't even know how to
Yeah.
describe it.
I feel like I'm really I don't know, sometimes I just have ideas that I latch onto. Like for that film in particular, I don't know, I was thinking a lot about like growing up in California, like um my middle school, everyone would always say was like built on top of like native like cemetery or burial. And I think that's horrible. Like that's so strange. And like I was just thinking about that a lot during that time about how like that just happens like everywhere about how people die and then like 100 years will pass and then there will be like a building where that person died and how like we just keep going. Like we just keep building until I don't know, we're just always covering ourselves. And I think that idea really stuck out to me. I like when I was making that film, I literally got the prompt from some random thing we did at the beginning of the school year. And it wasn't even like a thought in my mind before entering CalArts or even at the beginning of the year. But then the more I was thinking about it and the more I like talked about it with my class, I mean, like Pia was like, "Oh my God, you have to make this," which I was real hard to say no to. But yeah, I feel like I just get like I don't know. I have a lot of random ideas that I always latch on to, and I'm definitely like inspired by themes or just like things that happen in my life and the way that I feel about specific things. And I think that like everything I make is very personal,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I don't want it to be just about me, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You want it to be
Yeah.
relatable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I feel like something I love just in animation is just like showing I don't know, things when they're like slowing things down, I
Mhm.
guess. And so I was thinking about that a lot too when making that film, just like trying to slow everything down and like make sure that you could see everything happening, like every detail. I don't know.
Yeah, it felt very poetic, and like a poem sort of makes you focus on like peeling an orange or like
Hmm.
riding a bicycle, and like you have those motifs in your film where you're like focusing in on something that's like a daily experience even,
Yeah.
but it's like
Yeah.
you're capturing the beauty of it, which I think is actually really hard to do with animation, because animation, you want to speed everything up because it's so time intensive to even get a
Hmm.
second's worth of animation. So I think that's
Yeah.
amazing that you were able to sort of like stretch out the time component. Um, did you enjoy working on it? Was it stressful? Like, what was your process like?
It was really stressful. I mean, there's no way that I could say it wasn't. But I'm I don't know. I think out of a lot of people I know, I have a lot of patience for animation. Like I would work on that film from like 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. almost every single day for like weeks and weeks and weeks. Uh, which is crazy, but like
Nightmare.
I know, nightmare. I would like literally sit down and like put on the most mindless TV show and then just work. And it would like it just got me through it. Like, I don't know. I think I really love like capturing something really ordinary
Mhm.
and like putting that into my work in a way where it feels more magical or like, I don't know, more special than it does in real life.
Yeah.
Like peeling an orange or riding your bike through a city. And like, I think that like I was just so intensely focused on those motions that I just like it didn't matter to me how long I was working on it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's amazing that you could get into a flow state and just like find pleasure in it. Cause I know it's like not easy to do as an artist
Yeah.
sometimes. I do think it's really interesting. Like I collect prints, and
Hmm.
often the ones that I'll be really drawn to are like the ones people make of food, that
Hmm.
are like ingredients that they have in their kitchen, or like culturally that they have like passed down through generations. And I think there's a few like ceramicists that I follow who do similar things where they make like a jar out of like, but it looks like chili oil or whatever,
Hmm.
or sriracha or whatever. And I think I'm wondering if that's like even a reaction to just kind of the insanity of the world we live in right now with like social media and like COVID and all these other things. Like, does that drive you at all? Like wanting to make things
Yeah.
more permanent?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially food for me is really important, just like in my life. I love to eat. But I feel like it's really, I think that like all these like very ordinary things can tell a lot about a person and like who they are. And I feel like that's why food or like something like that is so like interesting and like sacred to me. I feel like, food is a large part of my cultural identity.
Mm.
So, yeah, I don't know. I feel like just slowing down to like look at the things that you have and like the things that you use every day. It's like, I think it can make your life feel a little more permanent.
Which is all that we're trying to do as artists. Is like,
Yeah.
we're in the hellhole. Let's find some little beautiful part of it and like focus on that.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, After having done this film and all these other pieces, I saw a couple of your assignments at other shows and things that are just mind blowing. Are you excited for the next 2 years? I know you don't have to make a film this year.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm wrong about that.
No. Yeah, this year we're developing our theses and
Okay.
like pitching them, I think. But yeah, I'm excited. I think I'm really excited to do something more out of the box, I think.
Mhm.
Um, Especially this coming semester, I really, really want to work more physical. Um, I
Good.
don't know. Yeah, I feel like I'm really inspired by Aiden, who's
Yeah.
our mutual friend.
I was just gonna say, Aiden clearly is rubbing off on you if you're interested in the physical and the gooey and
Yeah.
textural.
I mean, I love a texture. I love textures. But I just like I get so scared working physical. It's so different from I mean like drawing, you know. So I feel like I'm really excited to like make mistakes and figure that out. I'm taking a clay class in the upcoming
Yes.
semester,
Oh,
so
I'm so jealous.
I know
Oh,
I'm really excited for it and like I've never really worked with clay, so and I'm really, really interested in like I don't know, building something for my next film.
you
Yeah.
should. I think also it if you composite like a three-dimensional thing with your drawings, it will seem less scary because you're
Yeah.
like, I already know how to do this thing. Even if the clay thing doesn't work out, I can just like keep the other thing and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
daunting at all that like after CalArts, you basically spend 3 years of your life like heavily devoted to your work, and then at the end you have like two films you made? Like, is that sad at all? Like, that's kind of mind-blowing to me.
I think it's a little sad. I mean, but I think I don't know, it's always hard for me to like watch my past work for no reason. So I feel like as long as I am working and in the moment, I feel like I'm putting everything I have into this thing. I think that's all that's important to me, that I feel like I've done everything I could, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's how do you personally make peace with being an animator, I guess? Like the process of creating something and then being like, I never want to watch this again.
I don't know if I've made peace with that. I mean, I feel like God, it's just like I don't know why it's the worst thing in the world to watch or look at my old art. It's just like, oh, I think it's just like weird because all those things existed in a time when I was in a different mindset, you
Yeah.
know? So like anytime I'm looking at my old work, I'm revisiting that mindset.
Mhm.
And it doesn't even matter if it was like a good or a bad mindset. It's just like, oh, well, I'm different now. Like it's been months.
That's so funny. Yeah, I definitely get that. I think like some of the loops that you've done
Mhm.
are really beautiful, and is it maybe
Thank
easier
you.
to approach something that's like really non-narrative and just kind of like an art piece that you made and you're like, that was good. That's fine.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely easier. I feel like it's interesting because I've been told that like the stuff I made, like those loops I made were like really different from my film.
Yeah.
And I think that's true. And I think it's because I wasn't really thinking deeply about what they meant or like
Mm.
what they were supposed to be. Like I just really wanted to draw a burger that was separating and
But
you
you
know,
nailed it.
so
It's like the best burger ever. And I don't even
thank
eat
you.
burgers. Like I'm just like, God damn, I really want to
Yeah.
eat that.
Yeah. But that comes back to the food thing, you know. I just love like drawing something totally normal and then like making it weird somehow. Like, I don't know, burgers are like really funny to me for no reason.
Well, you nailed it. And I come back to your work again and again, and I find it really beautiful. And I hope you find some peace in that too, where you can approach your work and actually be happy with it. I know it feels awful in the moment, and I actually have already stored all of my grad school files and will never look at them again. Um,
Yeah.
what are you looking forward to other than getting more tactile? Is there sort of anything in your near horizon that you're excited to explore with the field of animation as you're becoming more animatory like the older you get?
Well, in my last film, I worked a lot with cells to do the painting, and I have so many cells still that I've just been thinking I want to keep working with that. Like, I don't know, it's like I really liked doing that because it added so much texture to my work. And I feel like even though like usually I add digital textures, I mean, it's obviously not the same as like
Yeah.
seeing those like real textures in like a scan or a photo. And so I feel like that's really special. And I definitely I want to keep working with those cells. And like if I could incorporate that into something physical, something new for my next film, I think that'd be amazing.
Yeah, there's so much cool stuff you can do with that. I'm really excited to see sort of what directions you end up pursuing. Do you have, I don't know, you've done so many things and you're interested in so many things. Do you have any sort of um advice or wisdom about like art making that keeps you able to like do it so much? Because it seems like you don't get art block super often, but maybe that's a false assumption.
Okay, I mean to be fair, I haven't really done a lot of art this summer, I feel like.
That doesn't count. First year grad summer is like not a real time period.
Okay, that's good
Does
to
not
know.
exist. Don't worry about it at all.
Um, Honestly, I think that I just get inspired by things every day, just like being a person. And so I feel like it's really easy for me to be like, yeah, just like make stuff without
Yeah.
caring and just like I don't know. I think with the thing that's like with my last film is that I just like kept making it without anyone telling me anything. Like there were points where it was like, oh, well, I definitely need more feedback about this or about this thing. And at a certain point, I was just like, I just need to keep making it. I can't stop because if I stop, it will not happen anymore. So I think that like the best thing you can always do when art making is to just keep going, even if you think it's bad, because you can always change anything that you made.
Okay. I have never adhered to that advice. If I'm working on something and it starts getting ugly, I like leave and I come back the next day. So that's interesting that you have this opposite perspective where you're just like, no, just keep fucking doing it. Keep doing the garbage. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, listen, when I make a ton of garbage, something in there is not going to be garbage. And then that's going to be worth it for me.
oh my God. Wow. I'm gonna be thinking about this all day as I'm making shit. Um, what kind of animation historically has like inspired you or your work? What do you feel drawn back to again and again?
There's this animator who I love. His name is Rio Hirano.
Okay.
I think I said that right. He makes these like strange shorts that kind of I don't know, they like introduce a bunch of characters to you, and then the characters are all just fucking doing the most insane thing you've ever seen. Like there's one where they like are going to the moon and there's like a guy in like a dentist like tooth outfit. And I don't know how to explain it, but like they're so bizarre, but they also make complete sense.
Mhm.
And I think that's how I want all of my work to feel.
You're a surrealist.
Yeah, exactly. I just like I want to make things as weird as possible while still having it make complete sense.
Okay. This is why I respect animators. Yeah, because I feel often you'll lose an audience if it doesn't make sense.
Hmm.
And like keeping that kind of either narrative or like dreamlike thread through everything is really important. Um,
Hmm.
I guess this is an important question. When you're making a film like the one that you already made, do you storyboard it? Like, do you know before it happens what it's going to be like, or does it change quite a bit through the process of making it?
Yeah, I storyboard, I feel like pretty intensely.
Mm,
Um, I kind of like don't write anything and I just go for it,
wow.
which is maybe one of my flaws. Um, I remember for that film, I literally just made like a 7-minute animatic with music in the background and sound effects. And then I brought it to class, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, you finished your film already." And I was like, "No, give me feedback on this." And then I got like, it got so torn up, like
Yeah.
things that I really wanted to have in that film were taken out. And then I don't know, long sections that I had paced out super long were cut out. And so the whole film was cut down by 2 minutes. And then what I did was I just like I took that storyboard and then I took sections of it and then just started animating those sections completely.
Mm.
Um, like the storyboard was a map for me, I guess. Yeah, it was crazy though, because I literally in that film, I had like a bunch of babies in it for like a really long time. And that's like really hard to explain why they were there or what I wanted them to do. But there were a lot of babies. And at some point, everyone was like, the babies don't make any sense and there's too much happening and you need to get rid of them. And so I did. And it took me like a long time to get rid of them because I really didn't want to get rid of them. But yeah, I feel like for me, I already like in my brain have like motifs of things that I want to happen. Like in that film, I had like I thought I was thinking about this pink ribbon. I was
Mm.
thinking about food like as an offering, and I was thinking about babies. And then when I put those together, I had to cut the babies out because it didn't make sense with the metaphor.
Oh my God. I wish I was a fly on the wall in all of your crits. This is so fucking funny.
Yeah.
Um, well, that brings up a wonderful point, which is like if you were not at CalArts in an MFA program and you were like doing whatever, had a job, didn't have a job, and you just had 2 years to work on that one film and no one was giving you criticism or feedback, do you think the finished version of that film, do you think it would be better? Like, if the one with the babies in it, like,
I think if I had done made that film outside of CalArts, it would have been like 15 minutes long. And, and it would have taken me 3 years to finish.
okay,
I think that like I have the problem where I just want things to keep going and I just like make things really, really long. And the babies would have definitely still been in it if I hadn't made it out of color.
yeah,
But I think that the version I made is the best version of it I can feel in my head because I feel like anyone I've talked to who's watched it has a lot of thoughts about it. And I think that's just like what makes me happy is that like you have thoughts about it and that it's not like, wow, what did I just watch? Like that didn't mean anything to me, you know?
yeah. It's well, it's very grounded, like
Mhm.
literally. So I think that helps it a lot, even though it's kind of a loose collection of metaphors, like you said, that are
Mhm.
um poetic and energetic and whatnot. Um, I that's like awesome because I think one of my sort of questions doing this project that you're now a part of is like, what is the point of art school and like structure and criticism, right? Because like in an ideal world, you would think that someone would be able to like teach themselves everything or like, get feedback from friends. But sort
Mhm.
of what you're describing is like this pressure cooker model where like you're in crit and like the professors and the students are just like, what about this? What about that? Change this, do that. Like,
Mhm.
and that helps forge your film. And I'm sort of wondering if you have, now that you've been to two pretty radically different art schools, if you have sort of
Mhm.
a perspective on what it's like to be an art student and what works for you and what you appreciate.
I think that it's like art school is different for everyone. I feel like it is true that you can teach yourself things like, just like there's so many resources online and like, everything, but I feel like I really, really enjoy being in an environment where I get very intense feedback. And I think there's a big difference between like showing my work in a classroom setting where everyone is like really thinking about what would make this better or what is like holding it down versus like showing it to my friends because I feel like in my undergrad I was definitely more of like I'm showing this to my friends situation because I didn't have a cohort, so I wasn't like close with anyone in my animation classes. And so like I would get crit like once in a while when we had crit in class. But I feel like that's not as helpful for me when I'm like actively making something. Like I want to get that feedback continuously. And so like I feel like when I show things to like my friends or my family, it's just like the feedback isn't the same because they don't have that same mindset as I am when I'm working on it, or like, people like they're not experimental animators, is what I'm saying, I guess. And so like being at CalArts has been helpful for me in that way to like get that feedback.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, it is super interesting. Like now that I'm on the reverse side, which you will hopefully get to at some point and survive. Um, it's like I was helping a friend and he's like designing a logo, and I was like, oh, here are like my 3 points of feedback because I'm a graphic designer. And he said that like his other graphic design friend said the exact same thing and was like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, like you have a good eye, blah blah blah. Um, and it's just so interesting that like even without the structure of a school, like having those one of the benefits of going to a place like CalArts is even if you skipped all your classes, which you should never do, I did do that. Like the people around you are still so like passionate about that one weird niche thing that you are, that like you'll always get good feedback.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Have you like do you think you've like found your sweet spot at CalArts? Do you think you know like I don't know. What do the next 2 years look like for you, hopefully?
I think I'm gonna keep experimenting with stuff and like changing my art and like thinking about the things that are important to me and figuring out how to tell those things to people.
Yeah. Do you have advice you would give to your younger self who is just starting out going to college?
Oh my God, my 18-year-old self. Oh
My
my
favorite
God.
question to ask people because no one likes it.
Uh, that version of me, I don't know if I would be able to look them in the eye. I would
They're like your
say,
old films.
oh my God. I think I would say like don't stress about stupid things. Like I think there's like a lot of things that in my undergrad I thought felt like life ending. And now it's like, actually, I'm fine.
Because a lot of it doesn't matter. Like
Yeah,
even now,
exactly.
like I'm sure your 40-year-old self is gonna be like, none of that mattered.
Yeah.
It didn't matter. You figured it out. It's fine.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's hard to constantly remind yourself to stay in that position where you're like, ah, shit, I'm not the center of the universe and everything's gonna be okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Damn. Well, I'm trying to think about other things to ask you. I feel like you're so snappy on the answers. Um,
Is that a good thing? I hope so.
I think it's a good thing. I just interviewed Ryan, and Ryan was
Hmm.
just like talking about politics and indie music and all of these other things. And I was like, so interesting figuring out like what goes into a person's work.
Hmm.
Um, do you think you have like other influences, like musical or like theater or like things that you bring into your work?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really influenced by film just in general. I watch a lot
Mm.
of film. And I love Twin Peaks. I feel like it is probably like the biggest thing that's ever influenced me in my life. But
Wow.
I
That's
know.
so interesting. I feel like that certainly visually doesn't come through in your work,
Mhm.
but maybe that's part of the like surrealism.
Yeah, that's why I love it. I love things that are just surreal, but they make sense. And I don't know, I really love how slow some parts of that show are. And like they kind of force you to be like really, I don't know, observant.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you think you would ever want to work on something like that, like at a studio?
I could see myself doing that.
That would be very cool crossover. Um, that's so interesting. Twin Peaks. Did you not want to go into live action ever? You were always sort of drawn towards animation.
Yeah, I mean, I've never thought about live action, but it's weird. I was actually thinking that this past summer that maybe I would try live action stuff, but that's like scarier to me. I don't know why.
It's not scarier. Everything's done for you. You don't have to draw anything.
No, that's the thing. I don't have control over everything.
It's true. But if you are a writer and a director and like you pick the costumes, in a sense, you have control over everything.
Yeah.
It's just you don't have control over the actors. They're
It's
like
interesting.
unruly animated children. It's like the babies. It's the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really interesting in my last year, Pia kept saying that my work was very cinematic, and I
Yeah.
think that's because I have a very strong film influence.
Oh, absolutely. And I think your work was, even in all its abstraction, it was in some ways more like literal character
Mhm,
going through the motions than a lot of the films were.
mhm.
Um, which is kind of going back to what you said about like your cohort has such radically different
Yeah,
films, and like
yeah,
you can tell immediately when something was done by one person or another person.
yeah.
Like Aiden's stuff is the crazy stop mo with all the textures and all
Mhm.
the fibers and like the angels, and
Yeah.
uh, your stuff is, beautiful and delicate and hand drawn, and it's so cool. It's so cool getting to talk to you and like learn about what goes into your work. Do you have any sort of parting words of wisdom to not your younger self, but anyone else kind of figuring out how to hack it as an animator and not drown?
I think people, animators, I don't know, if anyone is looking to be an animator or like struggling, I think you should just like start small, start with something that you really care about, and then I think it'll become easier.
Hmm. Has it become easier for you?
Yeah, totally.
Good. Well, I appreciate talking to you. And I'd love for you to give a lecture at some point
Oh,
on
yeah, cool.
maybe the experience of movie watching and
Hmm.
how it applies to animation. That'd be fun. Or whatever. Cooking.
Yeah, that'd be super interesting.
Yeah, because that's also the point of this, is to just be able to talk about literally anything and not have any
Hmm.
rules or anyone beating you down with a ruler, being like,
Yeah,
"No, you can't do this. You can't."
yeah, exactly.
Cool.